When the sheriff's SUV pulled up to my dock that morning, I honestly thought he was lost. The blue lights flickered across the glassy surface of Lake Juniper, reflecting off the cedar boards I'd just finished sealing the night before. My coffee was still steaming on the railing when he climbed out, hand resting on his belt, eyes scanning the water like I was hiding something illegal under it. I waved, half amused, half concerned, because who in their right mind calls law enforcement over a dock? "Morning," I called. "You lost, or did someone drown without telling me?" He didn't smile. "You Marcus Reed?" "That depends who's asking." The HOA president filed a complaint. Says you built an unapproved structure. Said it was on community property. I couldn't help but laugh. "You mean the dock I rebuilt on my shoreline? That one?" The sheriff exhaled, weary already. "Mind if I take a look?" I gestured toward the lake. "Be my guest. Watch the wet boards, they're slippery. Wouldn't want a government-funded splash." Behind him, a shiny silver BMW rolled up. I didn't even need to see the license plate to know who it was. Vivien Blackwater, the HOA president, stepped out like she was descending onto a red carpet. Heels, pearls, clipboard clutched like a holy relic. She glanced at my house, then the dock, then me. Each looked colder than the last. "Sheriff, thank you for coming," she said, voice polished but strained. "We've had repeated violations from Mr. Reed. Unauthorized construction, noise, environmental disturbance." "Noise?" I interrupted. "You mean the sound of me hammering at noon on a Saturday?" "Tragic." Vivien ignored me, turning back to the sheriff. "Our covenants strictly prohibit private docks on shared lakefront property." The sheriff looked down at his notepad. "That true, Reed?" "Only if the lakes changed hands overnight," I said. "My deed includes 92 feet of shoreline, extending 10 feet into the water. I even have the county map printed. Would you like to see it?" Her jaw twitched. "Those maps are outdated." "From 2 months ago," I said. "County recorder's stamp right there." The sheriff took the paper, studied it, and nodded slowly. Vivien's face froze, just for a moment, before she recovered. "Regardless," she pressed, "the HOA never received an application. That's because the HOA doesn't govern private shoreline structures. You'd know that if you'd read the bylaws instead of weaponizing them." Vivien's mouth thinned. "You think you can hide behind technicalities?" "I think you're mistaking property law for a suggestion box," I said, sipping my coffee. The sheriff looked between us, sensing the tension. "Seems like a civil matter. I'll file a note, but there's nothing criminal here." Vivien's face flushed crimson. "So anyone can just build whatever they want? He's destroying the character of our community." I smiled. "If by character you mean your monopoly on control, then yes, total destruction." She stormed off without another word, her heels clicking like gunshots on the gravel. The sheriff lingered a moment, handed me back the deed copy, and murmured, "You might want to keep that handy. Feels like she's not done." He wasn't wrong. That evening, as I grilled by the water, I saw her again, standing at the edge of her manicured yard across the cove, binoculars in hand, writing something on her clipboard. The sunset bathed everything in gold except her. She looked carved from cold marble, tracking every move I made. I almost raised my beer in salute, but decided she'd file that as public intoxication visible from common areas. The next day, I woke to find bright orange HOA violation notices taped to my mailbox, my gate, and, somehow, my kayak. Each cited a different infraction: visual clutter, unauthorized lighting, potential safety hazard. She'd even attached photos printed from her phone. I couldn't help admiring the dedication. It was like watching someone weaponize boredom. I drafted a calm, 3-sentence email to the HOA board attaching the deed, county permits, and surveyor's signature. I kept it dry, factual, unprovocative. The reply came within an hour: "We will review this matter in our next session." That was Vivien's way of saying, "I'm reloading." By Thursday, things escalated. My trash wasn't picked up. The landscaper who maintained the shared path stopped trimming the strip along my property, claiming new HOA guidance. And every evening, Vivien parked by the lake just long enough for me to notice her taking pictures. I tried ignoring it, until the power flickered one night and I discovered someone had unplugged the pump that circulated water through the dock light. The plug sat coiled neatly on the shore like a taunt. That was the moment I decided, fine, we'll play. I started documenting everything. Photos, timestamps, even a motion sensor pointed at the shore. A friend from the county office, Laura, confirmed what I already suspected. Vivien had submitted a community environmental complaint, accusing me of dumping chemicals into the lake. A full inspection was scheduled for next week. Relax, Laura told me over the phone. You're clean. But she's definitely trying to bury you in paperwork. I thanked her and spent the weekend making sure every inch of my dock gleamed like a showroom floor. Then I went one better. I installed a small weather station and a public data feed labeled Lake Juniper Environmental Monitor, hosted by Marcus Reed. Every reading, from water clarity to pH, was visible online. By Monday morning, half the neighborhood knew about it. Someone posted the link in our group chat with the caption, "Marcus has a NASA base now." The comments were gold, laughing emojis, a few supportive messages, and of course Vivien's terse reply. Unauthorized data collection violates privacy expectations. That afternoon, she cornered me at the mailbox. You think you're clever, she hissed. Mocking the rules. I'm just following the science, I said. It's educational. Kids love it. You're turning this community into a circus. I thought you liked order. What's more orderly than data? Her nostrils flared. Don't test me, Mr. Reed. The HOA can impose liens. Only if you win a vote, I reminded her. And judging by the comments, your approval rating's lower than lake algae. She glared, speechless, then pivoted sharply and walked away. For a brief moment I almost felt sorry for her. Control was her oxygen. My dock was an airtight room. The following weekend, just as I began thinking she might finally back off, I noticed 2 surveyor stakes hammered into the ground near my dock path. Fresh wood, fluorescent ribbons fluttering. A note pinned to one read, "Property boundary under dispute." I picked it up, turned it over, and saw her signature at the bottom. That's when I realized she wasn't trying to remove my dock, she was trying to move the land. A week later, 2 county officials showed up with clipboards, referencing a boundary clarification request filed by the HOA. They wanted to reevaluate shoreline erosion and potential shifts in property lines. It was absurd, but they were polite, just doing their job. I served them coffee, showed my documentation, and waited. By the time they left, one of them whispered, off record, "This is personal. She's been calling every department in the county." That night, I stood at the edge of the water, moonlight glinting off the dock's steel bolts, and decided the time for defense was over. Vivien had drawn the battle lines. I was going to redraw them with GPS precision. The next morning, I drove to the county courthouse and filed a quiet title action affirming my shoreline ownership, attaching all evidence of harassment. It was slow, bureaucratic revenge, the kind that brewed while your opponent thought they were winning. And as I walked out, I saw Vivien in the lobby, arguing with a clerk. She spotted me, froze, then smiled in a way that said she thought she'd already checkmated me. She hadn't realized the board she was playing on was mine. The county's boundary clarification dragged on longer than I expected. Weeks turned into a month of quiet hostility, Vivien's preferred battleground. She stopped waving in public, which I counted as progress, but she found subtler ways to invade my peace. HOA newsletters began featuring anonymous articles about lakefront violations and the moral decay of individualism. The grainy photo beside the text wasn't even subtle, it showed my dock from across the cove, labeled Exhibit A. I pretended not to care. Outwardly, I kept calm, spending my weekends fishing, hosting small barbecues, and installing solar lights along the shoreline. But underneath, Every quiet evening buzzed with tension. I could feel her watching. The binoculars had returned. Once, I caught her husband, Rick, pacing the edge of their yard, phone in hand, pretending to take pictures of birds while angling the lens toward my property. By mid-June, I received an official envelope from the HOA, a cease and desist order demanding immediate removal of all unapproved lakeside structures pending review. It was signed by Vivien and 2 board members I'd never met. The letter warned of daily accumulating fines and potential legal referral. I took a photo of it and sent it to Laura at the county office. She called me 5 minutes later, laughing so hard she could barely speak. "They can't fine you for something outside their jurisdiction, Marcus. Your property line was confirmed last week. The county map's being updated as we speak. So I own the shoreline? All 92 feet of it, and 10 feet beyond into the lake. It's in the record now. Send me the certified copy," I said, trying not to grin. "Vivien's going to have a coronary." But I didn't confront her immediately. I wanted to wait until she overplayed her hand. And she did, spectacularly. 2 days later, I woke to the sound of heavy machinery. I ran to the porch just in time to see a small workboat motoring toward my dock, an aluminum flatbed with 2 men in reflective vests and a hydraulic winch. The lead guy shouted over the engine, "We're here to remove unauthorized structures. HOA request." I shouted back, "You touch that dock and you're trespassing." He hesitated. "Talk to your HOA president. She said it's on common ground." "She lied," I said, pulling out my phone. "You're removing private property. This is your one warning." He frowned, pulled out his radio, and after a few tense minutes, the boat turned around. I filmed everything: engine noise, dialogue, timestamps. As the boat receded, I saw Vivien standing on her deck in a white summer dress, arms folded, expression unreadable. That video was my golden ticket. I uploaded it to the community Facebook group with the caption, "HOA attempts to remove my dock. County confirms it's on private land. This is how far they'll go to preserve aesthetics." Within an hour, the comments exploded. Some people defended her, "She's just enforcing the rules." But most were furious. "Abuse of power, can't believe she called a boat, why is she targeting you?" One neighbor even posted, "She did the same thing to me over a fence color last year." By sunset, the HOA page had shut off public comment. Vivien posted a statement claiming miscommunication and temporary misunderstanding. But her tone was different now. Defensive. Cornered. The next morning, I got a text from Rick Blackwater himself. "You've embarrassed my wife. Take that video down before this gets ugly." I replied, "It's already public record, Rick. Maybe try apologizing instead." No reply. But that night, my mailbox was knocked over. No witnesses, no camera footage. Just tire tracks on the shoulder and a smashed post. Coincidence, maybe, but I wasn't feeling charitable. I replaced the mailbox with a steel post set in concrete and mounted a floodlight facing the road. The tension simmered all week until Friday evening, when the sheriff's SUV returned. My stomach tightened again. He got out slower this time, expression heavy. "Evening, Marcus. We got another call." "Let me guess," I said. "Vivien." He nodded. "Noise complaint. Says you've been running industrial lighting that interferes with the peace and violates HOA standards." I looked toward the lake. The floodlight glowed softly across my driveway, barely bright enough to read a book under. "You're kidding." He rubbed his temples. "I told her it's not a criminal issue, but she insisted we inspect. You mind if I check the wattage, just to humor her?" I waved him through. "Knock yourself out." He measured, recorded, even smiled a little. "It's under 50 watts. She's wasting everyone's time." "That's her cardio," I said. He chuckled. "Look, I'm just the messenger, but off the record, you might consider documenting harassment formally." Paper trails growing. After he left, I sat by the dock with a beer and watched the stars ripple across the lake. The air smelled like cedar and tension. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, blocked ID. I answered anyway. A woman's voice hissed, "You think you can humiliate me and get away with it?" I recognized it instantly. "Vivien, you're really branching out, harassing calls now? This neighborhood has rules," she snapped. "You're poisoning it with your arrogance." "Funny," I said. "I thought you already filed that under chemical contamination." She hung up. The next day, I installed 2 additional security cameras. One facing the lake, one toward her property. I didn't publicize it. I just waited. Because people like Vivien always escalate until they feel the sting of consequence. A week later, the county sent me an official letter confirming full ownership and dismissing all HOA challenges. I framed it and hung it in my living room. For good measure, I also sent a copy to every HOA board member, CC'd to the county legal office, and titled the email, "Final Boundary Confirmation, Marcus Reed." The replies rolled in fast. 2 board members apologized privately, claiming they'd been misled. One even resigned. But Vivien? Radio silence. Until 3 days later, when something strange happened. A delivery truck pulled up with a large wooden crate labeled, "HOA Property, Construction Materials." The driver asked for my signature. "Miss Blackwater ordered it for this address," he said, confused. I laughed. "That's creative, attempted property dump." I refused delivery, recorded the interaction, and notified the HOA. They denied all knowledge. But the same night, I heard drilling from across the lake, Vivien's house. The next morning, a new floating platform had appeared near her yard, complete with rope barriers and a shiny sign. HOA Community Dock members only. So that was her counterattack. She couldn't remove mine, so she'd build her own, on the same lake, closer to the main inlet, where everyone could see it. The symbolism wasn't subtle. It screamed, "This is my lake now." I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I called Laura again. "Hey, quick question. Does the HOA have any aquatic construction permits on file?" "None," she said after a moment. "And if they're building on the shared inlet, that's technically public water. State jurisdiction. You thinking what I'm thinking?" "Oh, absolutely." I made a quiet call to the Environmental Compliance Office, anonymously. 2 days later, a state inspector's truck rolled up to Vivien's driveway. I watched from my porch as the inspector photographed her shiny new dock, then taped a large red notice to the floating platform. "Unauthorized structure, immediate removal required." For once, I wished I could see her face. That evening, the neighborhood buzzed again. Photos spreading, group chats exploding. People were laughing this time. "HOA dock got shut down," someone wrote. "Karma's a lake." For the first time in months, I felt peace. Brief, fragile peace. Until the next morning, when I found a letter slipped under my door. No envelope, no signature. Just 5 words scrawled in neat handwriting. "You don't know who I am." At first, I thought the note was a prank. The handwriting was immaculate, cursive like something from an old etiquette manual. No smudges, no haste. But those 5 words hit harder than they should have. "You don't know who I am." I turned the paper over. Blank. No signature, no seal. Just the faint smell of lake water and lavender. I half expected Vivien's perfume to linger on it, but it didn't match hers. She wore something sharper, metallic, expensive. This was subtler, floral, almost personal. I set it aside, assuming one of the board HOA members had taken up anonymous threats as a hobby. But the next morning, I found another. This time folded neatly under a rock by the dock ladder. "You've made enemies you don't see." Still no signature. I scanned the shoreline with my binoculars, half amused, half unnerved. Vivien's house was quiet. Curtains drawn. Rick's truck was gone. Across the water, a few kayakers glided by, but no one lingered. Everything looked normal, too normal. That night, around 11, motion sensors tripped near the lake path. The floodlights snapped on. I looked at the monitor. A shadow moving along the fence line, quick, deliberate. Not kids, too cautious. The figure paused by my gate, then disappeared toward the road. I stepped outside barefoot, adrenaline spiking. The night smelled like wet grass and diesel. No one in sight. By morning, another note. Stop before she does something you can't undo. Now I was done pretending it was harmless. I drove straight to the sheriff's office with the stack of notes, printed screenshots of my security feed, and a summary of the entire ordeal. Deputy Carlson met me in the lobby, a tall man with permanent exhaustion under his eyes. "Marcus," he said, flipping through the papers. "You think this is Vivien? Who else? She's been escalating for months." He shrugged. "Could be. But the handwriting's different from her official reports. More refined. Maybe someone doing it for her." "So now she's outsourcing threats?" Carlson sighed. "Look, you're not wrong to be worried. But nothing here crosses a clear legal line yet. I'll file a harassment record. You keep your cameras rolling." I left more frustrated than comforted. But as I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something new: Vivien's car parked by the HOA notice board near the entrance. She was stapling something up, her posture tense, movements sharp. When she saw me, she froze mid-swing, then forced a polite smile that looked like it hurt. "Good morning, Marcus," she said too sweetly. "Lovely weather, isn't it? What are you posting?" "Community update. We're organizing a lake cleanup this weekend." I raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing. "Cleaning up the lake you tried to have me evicted from." Her eyes flashed, but she kept smiling. "Some of us still care about maintaining standards." I leaned closer, reading the flyer. Among the details about environmental awareness and community unity, there was a line at the bottom that caught my eye: "Volunteers will help remove unapproved shoreline debris." "Debris," I repeated. "That wouldn't include, say, my dock?" She tilted her head. "If it's not debris, you have nothing to worry about." Her voice was soft, but the challenge underneath was razor-sharp. That night, I emailed the county again, requesting a patrol presence during the cleanup. If Vivien thought she could stage a community-sanctioned demolition, she'd have to do it under flashing blue lights. Saturday arrived cloudy and humid. By noon, about a dozen residents gathered near the lake entrance, most armed with gloves and trash bags, pretending they were there for goodwill. Vivien stood at the center, clipboard ready, dressed in a white windbreaker like a field marshal. When I stepped out with my camera, the smiles faltered. "Morning," I said cheerfully. "Recording for transparency." Vivien's jaw tightened. "We're just picking up litter, Marcus. Don't make this adversarial." "I wouldn't dream of it." For the first hour, everything was boringly civil. People picked up cans, branches, old fishing line. But then a pair of volunteers drifted toward my side of the lake, too close for coincidence. One reached the edge of my dock and tapped the boards with his shoe. Vivien called out, "If that's unstable, we may need to remove it for safety." I raised my phone. "Touch that dock and you'll be explaining safety to the sheriff." Right on cue, a patrol car rolled up the gravel path. The same sheriff from before stepped out, hat tilted low. "Afternoon, folks. Got a report of potential property dispute. Everyone staying civil?" Vivien's smile turned brittle. "Of course, Sheriff. Just ensuring community safety." He looked at me, then back at her. "Let's keep it that way." The volunteers quickly found reasons to leave. Within 30 minutes, the cleanup dissolved, Vivien's clipboard hanging limp at her side. She turned to me as the last car left, voice low enough only I could hear. "You've humiliated me in front of my neighbors twice now. This won't end how you think." "It already is," I said. "You just can't see it yet." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you're smarter than everyone. But you don't know what she's capable of." "She." Vivien blinked, realized she'd said too much, and walked off. That single word stuck in my mind all night. She. Not I. Around midnight, the motion sensor went off again. I checked the screen. No one there, but the camera feed flickered briefly before cutting out. The next morning, my router had been reset. Someone had tampered with it. The security footage between 11:48 and 12:06 was gone. And waiting on my porch swing was another note. This one written in a different pen, thicker strokes, urgent handwriting. She's losing control. Stay away from the dock tonight. The same floral scent lingered. Lavender and lake water. I walked down to the dock slowly, scanning the boards, the shoreline, the trees. Everything looked untouched. Still, instinct told me the warning wasn't random. I took a flashlight and checked beneath the plank. Nothing unusual, until I reached the far corner, near the ladder. A coil of rope. Wet, tangled, freshly cut. Someone had been here. I reported it to Carlson first thing in the morning. He frowned when he saw the photos. Could be vandalism. Could be a warning. You got enemies now, Marcus. Tell me something new. He leaned back. You said she mentioned another woman. Anyone else in the HOA active lately? Just her and Rick. The rest keep their heads down. Carlson scratched his chin. We'll increase patrols for a bit. But watch your step. Sometimes when people lose control, they double down. Instead of backing off. He didn't need to tell me that twice. Over the next few days, I started noticing patterns, small, unsettling ones. My mail arriving opened. My trash cans moved 2 feet closer to the road. Random knocks at odd hours with no one there. It wasn't dangerous, not yet, but it was invasive. Personal. Whoever she was, she wanted me unsettled. Then came the biggest twist of all. A letter from the county clerk, official envelope, blue stamp. Inside was a notice of title concern, claiming my shoreline deed had been challenged by a private claimant. The name listed, Eleanor Price. I didn't recognize it, but the address matched the Blackwaters property. I drove straight to the records office. The clerk looked up the file and explained that Eleanor Price was the previous owner of Vivien's house, Rick's mother. Deceased 6 years ago. Wait, I said. So someone used her name? Looks like it, he said grimly. Forgery maybe. But whoever filed it had the right parcel numbers and access to old documentation. Someone inside the HOA must have helped. That night, I watched Vivien's house through the binoculars. The lights flickered inside. Rick was gone again. Vivien stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear, pacing furiously. She looked smaller than usual, fragile, frantic. And for the first time since this started, I realized she wasn't just malicious, she was afraid. Whatever she'd started had spun out of her hands. By the time Sunday rolled around, I'd convinced myself the name, Eleanor Price, had to be a clerical glitch. Bureaucracies were slow, messy, allergic to logic. But the handwriting on those anonymous notes, it wasn't bureaucracy. It was deliberate. Someone was reaching into my life, turning legal dust into chaos. I spent the morning tracing connections. Vivien's property deed, county archives, HOA filings. Every thread led back to the same pattern. Minor discrepancies, corrected forms, revised signatures. The earliest ones dated 2 months after Eleanor Price's death. Someone had quietly been altering lakefront boundary records, shifting parcel numbers by inches each year, just enough to blur ownership lines. And guess whose name appeared on the First Amendment? Vivien Blackwater, acting as designated community liaison. I sat back in my chair, staring at the glowing screen. She'd been setting this up for years. Maybe not even for me. Maybe for anyone unlucky enough to own something she wanted tidy and controlled. I wasn't her first war. Just her first public defeat. Around dusk, I saw movement across the lake. A flashlight bobbing near the remains of her HOA dock, the one the state had ordered dismantled. Someone was there, kneeling beside the floating debris, collecting pieces into a tarp. Too dark to tell who, but the figure's posture was sharp, methodical. I zoomed my binoculars. The silhouette was smaller than Vivien's, shoulders narrow. A woman, but not her. My phone buzzed right then, unknown number again. I answered cautiously. Marcus, the voice whispered. Female. Younger than Vivien. You need to listen. She's not acting alone. Who is this? Silence. Then, she's using her mother's name. To hide the accounts. To move the property line. But she's not the one forging the papers. Then who is? Click. Line dead. I stood there for a full minute, listening to the quiet hum of the night, feeling that familiar rush of disbelief that comes when paranoia starts to sound rational. The next morning, I drove into town and paid a visit to the county records office again. My friend Laura wasn't there, vacation, but her coworker, a clerk named Davis, recognized me instantly. "Ah, the doc guy," he said with a grin. "Your file's gotten famous around here." "Yeah, I'm flattered. Listen, I need to know who's been accessing Shoreline documents for the Blackwater parcel." He frowned, typing fast. "That's sensitive. Normally only authorized personnel." "Then humor me off the record. Has there been recent activity?" He hesitated, then turned the monitor slightly. "Last login was 2 nights ago. Someone pulled both your file and the Blackwater one. Used a temporary access code from the HOA office." "Who had the code?" "Board members, mostly. Vivien. Rick. And their secretary, what's her name?" "Hannah Price." I froze. "Price?" He nodded. "Yeah, that's the one. Young woman, new to the HOA. Took over bookkeeping last spring." So there it was, the missing link. Hannah Price, granddaughter of Eleanor Price. The she Vivien had slipped up about. I thanked him, walked out, and sat in my truck for a long while, staring at the steering wheel. Vivien hadn't been working alone. She'd been manipulated, or maybe protected, by someone who had both access and motive. Hannah must have been forging the records under her grandmother's name, slowly rewriting ownership to expand the HOA's hold on the lake. Vivien might have thought it was harmless tidying. She probably didn't realize it was full-on fraud. By evening, the storm hit. Wind rattled the shutters, rain pelted the lake so hard it looked like boiling steel. Around 10, the power flickered out. My backup generator kicked in automatically, humming low and steady. I grabbed a flashlight and checked the fuse box, but everything was fine. When I looked out the window, I saw headlights moving slowly through the rain. A car idling at the curve near my gate. I stepped onto the porch, rain soaking through my shirt. The driver's window rolled down halfway. It was Vivien. Her eyes were wild. Makeup streaked, hair plastered to her face. "You need to stop digging," she said, voice trembling. "You forged land document. You tried to steal property lines." "I didn't," she snapped. "I thought it was legal. Hannah told me it was cleanup, just aligning old map. She said it would prevent disputes." "Then why the threats?" "The notes. I didn't write those." Lightning flashed, illuminating her face, pale, desperate. "She's not who you think she is, Marcus. She's angry about what her grandmother lost. She thinks you took it." "I didn't take anything." "She doesn't care." A car approached from behind, its headlights slicing through the rain. Vivien flinched. "I have to go. She's watching me." Before I could respond, she slammed the car into gear and sped off, tail lights vanishing into the storm. I barely slept that night. Every sound outside felt like footstep. Every flicker of lightning looked like movement. By dawn, exhaustion had given way to focus. I went back through every file, every timestamp, every camera clip. Around midnight 3 nights earlier, the footage I'd thought was deleted had a 1-second flicker, just enough to catch a frame of someone crouched near the dock ladder. The reflection from the floodlight caught part of her face. Young, maybe early 30s. Dark hair. Hooded jacket. Hannah Price. The next morning, I called Carlson. "I have proof someone's been tampering with my property and the county's records." He came by that afternoon, raincoat still dripping. I showed him the frame freeze, the timestamps, the call logs, the letter from the county clerk. He studied it all in silence, then said quietly, "This is bigger than neighbor drama now." He radioed something, then turned back to me. "If she's been filing under a dead woman's name, that's fraud, identity misuse, maybe conspiracy if Vivien's involved. We'll need warrants. Stay put. Don't confront her. But I couldn't help it. That evening, as the sky cleared and the lake turned glassy again, I saw Hannah walking along the opposite shore. Alone. She paused near where Vivien's dock had been, staring across the water at my house. Then she smiled, a slow, unsettling smile, and raised a phone like she was taking a picture. I raised my camera too. The moment our lenses met, she waved. The next day, Vivien's husband Rick appeared at my door, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. "Please," he said before I could speak, "leave my wife out of this. She's sick. This whole thing, it's Hannah. She's obsessed with that property line. Then tell her to stop trespassing. She won't listen to me either. My wife's terrified of her, Marcus. Hannah's been living with us since her mother died. She keeps saying her grandmother's land was stolen by the developers. She's convinced you're part of it." "Developers? I bought my parcel 5 years ago." He nodded miserably. "Logic doesn't matter to her. She thinks if she fixes the maps, she'll restore what was lost." I found files on her laptop, old deeds, fake survey forms. She's rewriting history. Before I could respond, a loud crack echoed from the direction of the lake, wood splintering, something heavy collapsing. We both ran outside. My dock. Half the railing had been ripped off, boards floating loose in the shallows. A rope trailed into the water, tied to a small anchor embedded in the mud. The damage was fresh. I grabbed my flashlight, scanning the shoreline. Footprints, small, narrow, leading toward the trees. Rick cursed under his breath. "She's completely lost it." I didn't argue. We followed the tracks until they disappeared into the woods. Then, faintly through the pines, came the sound of an engine, the same aluminum workboat I'd seen before, idling near the old HOA dock. "She's trying to pull it apart," I realized. "She's literally dismantling everything tied to the boundary." Rick's phone buzzed. He looked down, face going white. "Vivien's gone," he said. "She left a note. Said she's turning herself in before Hannah ruins us all." The wind off the lake cut cold against my skin as the realization hit me. The war over property had turned into something unrecognizable. It wasn't about docks or rules anymore. It was about inheritance, obsession, and someone who decided to rewrite an entire history, one board, one map, one life at a time. The next 48 hours felt like living inside a police scanner. Deputies combed the woods, divers checked the shoreline, and the hum of radios filled the still air around Lake Juniper. My dock, half ruined, sat like a war relic jutting into the mist. Vivien had vanished after leaving her note. Carlson confirmed she'd driven to the county sheriff's office that night but never made it inside. Her car was found abandoned 2 miles from town, engine cold, purse still on the passenger seat. Rick was beside himself, pale, hollow, trembling. "She said she was going to confess," he kept saying. "I thought she'd be safe." I stayed quiet. Because what could I say? That his wife had been part of a fraud ring she didn't fully understand? That her own niece, or was it cousin, had weaponized grief into obsession? None of it mattered if she didn't come back. The deputies didn't officially call it foul play, but Carlson's tone changed. "We're treating this as a missing person with possible criminal elements," he told me. "If you see Hannah Price, don't approach. She's clever, unstable, and probably armed with more than paperwork." That night I couldn't sleep. The rain had passed, but the humidity clung to everything. Around 2 a.m., motion sensors triggered again, this time near the lake path. My heart jumped. I checked the feed, a flashlight beam bobbing toward the broken dock. I zoomed in. It was Hannah. Her hair was loose, soaked in sweat or rain, and she was dragging something heavy wrapped in a tarp toward the water. I grabbed my jacket, phone, and the baseball bat I kept by the door, then called Carlson on speaker as I crept down the porch step. "She's here. By the dock." "Stay back," he said immediately. "We're en route." But I'd already stepped into the mud. The moon broke through the clouds, silvering the lake. Hannah froze, flashlight beam cutting across me like a spotlight. Her voice carried sharp over the water. You shouldn't be here. Funny, I live here, I said, inching closer. What's in the tarp? She laughed, short, brittle. Memories. Lies. Things that don't belong to you. The tarp shifted in her grip, something metallic clinking inside. Vivien trusted you, I said. She turned herself in. You don't have to make this worse. She betrayed my family, Hannah hissed. Do you know what they did to my grandmother? They called her crazy when she tried to warn them. They stole this lake from her. Eleanor Price sold her land legally, Hannah. It's all in public record. Lies written by thieves, she screamed. Her flashlight trembled in her hand. For a split second, I thought she might throw it at me. Instead, she dropped it and lunged for the tarp. I caught her wrist. She fought like someone half feral, fingernails scraping my arm. The tarp ripped open, boards, nails, rope, and something else spilled out. A binder, water-stained but sealed in plastic. She scrambled to grab it, but I kicked it away. What is this? Proof, she cried. Proof the shoreline was ours. She, Vivien, was supposed to help me fix it, but she got scared. You made her weak. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint but growing louder. Hannah's eyes widened. You called them. I'm trying to help you, I said, backing up slowly. You're making this worse for yourself. She stopped, chest heaving, and for a moment her rage dissolved into something like grief. It was supposed to be beautiful again, she whispered. Before the docks, before the noise, before all of you ruined it. Then she bolted, through the reeds, into the trees, vanishing like smoke before the cruisers even arrived. Carlson and 2 deputies swept the area, flashlights slicing through the woods, but she was gone. They found tire tracks leading toward the back road. No sign of Vivien. By dawn, the dock looked like a crime scene. I gave my statement, handed over the binder, and watched Carlson thumb through its soggy pages. These are altered deeds, he muttered. Every one of them forged. Different inks, signatures, even stamps. So it's real. Oh, it's real all right. And whoever helped her had access to official seals. That's felony-level fraud. Rick showed up mid-morning, face ashen, clutching a small stack of photos. She sent these to me last night, he said, voice shaking. From Vivien's phone. The photos were of the lake, taken from a boat. One showed the broken dock. Another showed Vivien's reflection in the water, head turned toward the trees. The last photo was just darkness, except for a faint shape in the distance, a woman standing at the shoreline, watching. She's haunting us, Rick whispered. I wanted to tell him ghosts didn't text photos, but even I couldn't shake the unease crawling under my skin. That evening, a news van rolled into the neighborhood. The story had spread, HOA president missing amid lake property dispute. The reporter's voice carried across the water as they filmed near the entrance. Neighbors peered from porches. Suddenly everyone who'd ignored months of harassment wanted to claim they always knew something was off. I stayed inside, curtains drawn, but around 9, headlights flashed again outside my gate. A single car idled for a moment, then drove off. When I went to check, a small parcel lay on the gravel. No address, no return label. Inside was a USB drive and a folded note. The same lavender scent. The handwriting precise again. She didn't drown. She's waiting. I plugged the USB into an old laptop disconnected from Wi-Fi. A folder popped open with 6 video files labeled by date. The earliest was from the week Vivien's dock had been dismantled. The footage showed a small boat moored near the opposite shore, camera fixed toward my house. Each clip showed someone watching from the darkness, once at midnight, once at dawn. In the 5th video, Vivien appeared beside the camera, arguing with someone off-screen. Her voice cracked. You said this would make it right. Then she turned, as if realizing she was being filmed, and the screen cut to black. The final video was time-stamped 2 nights ago, the night she disappeared. The image was shaky, rain blurring the lens. Headlights flickered in the distance. Vivien's voice came again, frantic. Please, Hannah, don't do this. Then a splash. Loud. Closed. The camera fell sideways, half submerged, capturing a single distorted image before the file ended. Ripples spreading across the lake, flashlights spinning, and the faint outline of someone walking away. Carlson took the footage that night. We'll dredge the inlet tomorrow, he said grimly. By morning, they found the boat, but no body. For the next week, Lake Juniper turned into a news circus. The HOA suspended operations, pending investigation. Half the board resigned. The rest pretended they'd never met Vivien. Hannah Price, meanwhile, vanished completely. Her car found at a rest stop 70 miles north, fingerprints wiped, engine still warm. But I couldn't stop thinking about that note. She didn't drown. She's waiting. Waiting for what? The first real clue came a few nights later. The weather had calmed. The lake was mirror-smooth. I was standing on my rebuilt dock, testing the repaired lights, when I saw a faint glow under the water, a beam, steady and unmoving. I dropped to my knees, peering closer. It wasn't a reflection. It was a light source coming from below. I grabbed a pole and prodded gently until something shifted. A small waterproof case rose to the surface, tethered by fishing line. Inside was a phone, Vivien's. I dried it carefully, powered it up, and somehow, miraculously, it turned on. The screen unlocked with her fingerprint still registered. Messages filled the inbox, dozens from Hannah. We finished tonight. He'll pay for what they did. You promised to help restore her name. And the last one, unsent but saved in drafts. If I disappear, it's because she made sure I did. That was enough for the sheriff to reopen the case as foul play. But for me, it wasn't just evidence. It was closure mixed with something heavier. Guilt, maybe. I'd been so busy proving I was right that I'd never noticed someone else unraveling completely. Still, the lake didn't care. It lay there, indifferent, swallowing secrets like rainwater. And as the sun rose over the quiet water, I couldn't shake the feeling that Hannah wasn't gone. Just patient, waiting for another boundary to redraw. For weeks after they pulled Vivien's phone from the lake, silence settled over Juniper like fog. The HOA meetings stopped. The Blackwater house stood empty, blinds drawn, for sale sign leaning crooked in the yard. You'd think peace would have felt good after months of chaos, but peace has a strange way of feeling like the absence of answers. Hannah Price had vanished completely. The state issued a warrant, news anchors speculated, neighbors whispered theories that made her sound like a myth. Some said she'd fled to the mountains. Others swore they'd seen her boat drifting at dawn, unmanned. I didn't believe in ghosts, but I did believe in obsession, and I knew obsession never really disappeared. It just changed shape. I kept mostly to myself, focusing on work, patching the dock, and trying to make the property look normal again. But normal didn't fit anymore. The lake had moods now, strange stillness one minute, sudden ripples the next, as if it was remembering. And then came the letters again. The first appeared on my porch 2 weeks after the investigation quieted. No envelope, no signature, just the same neat cursive, lavender scent faint but unmistakable. You think it's over, but the water remembers. I stood there holding it, every hair on my arms prickling. Whoever was leaving these was patient enough to wait for the perfect moment, long enough for me to drop my guard. I turned the property inside out, checked every camera angle, every motion sensor. Nothing. Not one sign of intrusion. Carlson came by later that day to check on me. He'd gone from weary to hollow. The case had aged him. We never found a body, he said, scanning the dock. If she drowned, the currents should have brought her up by now. But the lake's deep in spots. Cold, too. You think she's alive? He shrugged. If she is, she's smart enough not to use her name. He left soon after, leaving me alone with the kind of quiet that buzzes in your ears. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch with the security feed pulled up, watching the lake breathe under the moonlight. At 1:23 a.m., the motion alert chimed, a shape at the far end of the dock. At first I thought it was a reflection. Then it moved. A woman, barefoot, hair slick against her face, clothes dripping wet. She stood at the end of the dock, head bowed. My chest clenched. Vivien? Impossible. The camera glitched for half a second, then cleared. She was gone. I grabbed the flashlight and ran outside, heart pounding. The boards creaked under my feet, cold dew soaking through my shoes. Nothing but still water. No footprint. No ripple. When I turned back, a single sheet of paper fluttered against my doorframe. Same handwriting. She wants you to see. The next morning, I took the note straight to Carlson. He studied it quietly. If this is real, she's playing with you. Either she's alive or someone wants you to believe she is. Then let me end it, I said. Let me show her I'm not afraid. Marcus, he warned, don't engage. That's how people like her win. But fear and defiance are made of the same chemicals, and by that point, I'd had enough of both. That evening, I made a plan. I borrowed a thermal drone from a friend at the county GIS office and set it to patrol the lake perimeter after dark. If she, or anyone, was coming back, I'd catch them. I rigged new motion lights, hid an extra camera under the dock boards, and left the porch light burning like a challenge. Midnight came and went. The lake was silent, windless, almost sacred. Then at 12:47, the drone feed flashed. Heat signature near the far inlet, where the old HOA dock had once stood. I grabbed my flashlight and my phone and drove the dirt path around the lake. The air smelled metallic, storm on the horizon. As I neared the inlet, I saw faint light reflecting off the water, lantern glow, moving slowly. A small boat bobbed there, and in it, Hannah. She looked nothing like the version I'd last seen. Her hair hung in ropes, her clothes clung like soaked paper, but her eyes were bright, too bright. You shouldn't have rebuilt the dock, she said. It disturbs her. Who? My grandmother, she said simply. She's still here. You've trapped her. Her voice cracked into a strange, reverent tone. You built over what she owned. Every board, every nail, it bleeds into her memory. That's why the water never stays still. You need help, Hannah, I said carefully. Vivien wanted to help you before it went too far. Vivien was weak, she whispered. She drowned herself in guilt. But she smiled faintly. I'll finish what she started. She reached into the boat and lifted a small fuel can. My stomach dropped. Hannah, no. It's not yours, she said, voice trembling but resolute. The lake was never meant for people like you. She began pouring gasoline into the water. The slick spread in eerie rainbow streaks across the surface, reflecting the lantern's flame. I lunged forward, trying to grab the can. The boat rocked violently, Hannah losing her balance. The lantern tipped. Fire bloomed across the water like a living thing. She screamed as the heat surged, leaping toward the shore, but the current dragged the boat sideways. I waded in, grabbed her arm, pulling hard until we both collapsed on the bank. She coughed, gasping, eyes wide and unfocused. The lake, she whispered hoarsely. It's angry. Behind us, the burning slick moved outward, eating the fuel, spreading light across the dark water. Sirens echoed from far away. Someone must have seen the flames. Hannah clutched my wrist, nails biting deep. She's under there, she said. Vivien didn't drown. She's waiting for the truth. Then her grip went slack. By the time the deputies arrived, the fire had burned itself out, leaving black smoke curling off the surface. They rushed Hannah to the hospital, unconscious but alive. I sat on the ground, soaked and shaking, watching the faint orange glow fade into the mist. The next morning, Carlson met me by the shoreline. Divers had found something. Not a body, something else. A submerged car. Half buried in silt, its windshield cracked, license plate barely visible. Vivien's BMW. Inside, waterlogged folders, an empty purse, and the remnants of a broken seatbelt. She wasn't murdered, Carlson said quietly. Looks like she lost control during the storm and went into the lake. No foul play. Just bad timing. I stared at the wreckage, the irony cutting like glass. After all the lies, the paranoia, the forged maps and midnight threats, it had been an accident. Or maybe not, because when they opened the trunk, they found a sealed envelope taped to the lid, addressed to me. Marcus Reed, for when the truth surfaces. Inside were printed maps, dated 3 months before her death. Property lines, correctly drawn. And a handwritten note. You were right. The lake belongs to you. But she'll never stop believing otherwise. Be careful who you save. That was the last word from Vivien Blackwater. Hannah remained in psychiatric care under state custody. Her confession cleared me of any lingering disputes, and the county officially dissolved. The HOA due to mismanagement and ethical violations. The neighborhood disbanded like smoke. Some sold their homes, others just stopped pretending to care. And me? I stayed. I rebuilt the dock one last time, not for show or spite, but to anchor something steady in all that madness. I sealed the boards with my own hands, replaced the lights, even carved a small brass plate into the railing. 4-piece hard one. Some nights the water is calm. Others it whispers, soft, rhythmic, like conversation just out of reach. Maybe it's wind. Maybe memory. I've learned not to ask which. A month after everything ended, I received one last envelope. No handwriting this time, just a printed label and inside, a photo. Taken from the lake, facing my dock at sunset. In the reflection, 2 figures stood side by side, one unmistakably me. The other, faint but visible, shoulder to shoulder, watching the water. No caption. No scent. Just that image. I keep it in a drawer I rarely open, next to the old deed and the lavender-scented letters. Some stories don't need neat endings. They just need distance. And as I sit on the dock each evening, listening to the gentle lap of water against the wood, I can't help but think that maybe the shoreline was never about ownership at all. Maybe it was always about how far people will go to claim what they think is theirs, and how deep the lake is willing to let them sink.